Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back. I hope your week is unfolding oh so beautifully well. We're very glad that you're here and with us. We've got a follow-up on Iryna. We had another video that we did a segment on that one, but now we've got all the documents. So this guy's been charged in a couple locations. The state and, of course, the federal charges just dropped today. And so quick preview on what we're going to get into. I've got it all queued up. We'll talk about some J6 stuff, the new January 6th Select Committee, and the victims in the old case that we've been talking about suddenly are objecting again. They don't want anybody to know anything about the case, even though they want justice on the case. All right, so we'll go through it. Quick preview. Today, we're not planning on playing the video, but there is more video out in the aftermath of the stabbing. The prior video that we covered here was he stands up and then is about to hack her. Then they release the other half of the video. Actually, the full thing is on YouTube, and I would encourage you to watch it. But the reason we're a little, skittish on playing it is because if YouTube flags this as 18 plus, then we're not gonna get to go through anything else. Essentially, no one will ever see it. So we've got that. We also have this guy saying in the video on audio, we will watch this one, saying that I got that white girl. I got that white girl is the phrase. And a lot of people like Van Jones are saying, don't make this about race, please, because it's devastating for our race. Don't talk about it. But of course, we're going to talk about it and explain and ask ourselves a very simple question. If this person was black, if the woman who sat there was black, would this guy have stabbed her and hacked her knife into her neck? Probably not. So we'll go through it. We'll see what some reaction is. Politico still being garbage. And they're still saying that she is being dragged into a political messaging war. Give me a break. She got dragged into that dude's knife by her hair and his hands. So that's what it was. This was written by some intern over there at Politico. And like literally he's an intern. Jacob Wendler's an intern. Like, all right, they gave him that story. So we'll go through it. FBI announced charges against him. I've got those documents queued up. So we got the docket. We've got the criminal complaint. We've got the affidavit in support of the arrest and the search warrant. We've also got the full history of this dude pulled up. 16 out of 16 here over on the North Carolina court website. And we also got all the documents from the state charge as well. So you can see here was the arrest warrant for the state. We've got the affidavit and more from the state level charges that we'll go through very short from the cop. We'll see what's happening there. We've got his release conditions, conditions of release, and more. So I got a bunch of documents queued up. As you can see, they're also putting this guy in for mental evaluation. Watch them say he's just insane. Let's let him out again. He can take the metro home. Idiots. All right. So anyways, we'll come back to that. A lot of reaction on this. So the White House, Mr. President Trump was out. He released a full video on it. We'll watch the full thing and see what's going on with him. And then Karoline Leavitt was also out today. So she started this press briefing on this case, rightfully so. And we'll see what she had to say. So all coming up. Thank you for sticking around for that one. Then we've got some January 6th stuff, because what's happening here is the January 6th Select Committee. We got questions about their pardons and whether those are valid. Since Joe Biden didn't go to the meetings, Joe Biden apparently delegated this to Kamala, and a lot of it was done by AutoPen, even though his own administration said, you got to sign the documents, Joe. Didn't do it. Ed Martin is saying, you're going to get some subpoenas coming your way. Man, I hope Liz Cheney gets one so bad. I hope so, but we'll see. Ted Cruz says, your pardons are null and void. We've also got Rep. William Timmons. He's got a message from the House Oversight Committee about what's coming up for those folks. But what's happening on the opposite side is we're now going to be forming a new January 6th Select Committee. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but the Democrats are appointing the clowns back on to the committee. So we'll go through this. They're now going to put Stinky Eric Swalwell, who made Bang Bang with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy, Jasmine Crockett, who is just something real special over these last few years, and then this other guy, Moskowitz. They're all just annoying Democrats. And so they're going to put them on the committee because they're clowns and they'll do a good job being the jester there. But we'll see what's going on there. We've got the panel has been appointed. Remember last time Nancy Pelosi didn't seat any of the Republicans that Kevin McCarthy put forward. So why should Johnson allow these people to go on there? Just appoint anybody you want and just call, Democrats, call it a bipartisan committee. Just go get the most conservative Democrat in the reddest district ever, put them on the committee, and then make them eat it. Just like, well, and in fact, Liz Cheney, by the way, and Adam Kinzinger were their backstabbing Republicans who Nancy Pelosi posted. Not the Republicans. Anyways, we'll come back on that during the segment. Lots of clips that we probably will not watch because we can't. We'll see how long we can take, maybe 5 seconds, but it's a 3-minute clip. She spoke for 3.5 minutes. Brain cells are frying over there. So we'll talk about that. And then a little bit more from Ed Martin, because he was on with Matt Gaetz saying, we're coming for all of it, baby. And I sure hope so, Ed. I sure hope so. So all that's coming up. Then we'll talk about the Jeffrey case. And this case is getting more and more ridiculous. I'm sort of getting irritated and, a lot of questions about what the heck's going on here, because these people, this is the second time now, the victims don't want answers and they're putting it in writing. So they submitted this. They say, we object. NBC filed a motion saying, can we unseal some records, please? All the victims come out and they say, no, we object. And just like we saw at the press briefing when they came out and told us nothing, wasted everybody's time. Why should we? Remember? Why should we? It was like a therapy session. So anyways, they're objecting. They don't want the information coming out. And I think we know why. It's because there's nothing in there. And if they have all of this splayed out from everywhere, people will say, you guys don't have anything there. If you did, you would have said something about it. And so we're not going to just believe all women on this crap. We need some evidence. So we got that. Now, the House Oversight Committee has released more Epstein estate records, and we're going to go through some of them. A lot of them are duplicated. Okay, we've already seen a lot of these things, but the big one is that birthday card and that signature that they say is Trump's. So we'll look at the documents and go through them. Lots of weird photos in there, full frontal of Ghislaine Maxwell, all redacted, thankfully. But she had some, anyways. So we'll look at the documents and we'll see what's happening there. And then Karoline Leavitt came out unequivocally and said, we're happy to litigate this thing. It's not his signature. He never signed it, never wrote the document. So she obliterated the media. We'll get up to speed on all of it. It's a beautiful day, my friends. Thank you for being here. Thanks for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done that. And thanks for liking this video as well. We also have a great members-only community. If you're looking to hang out a little bit more with us, join us. We'll have a members-only after party today. We had a beautiful members-only stream this morning. My brother Joey is in town. He's making cameo appearances on the show. Very nice. So thanks for supporting us. Thanks for becoming a member. You can sign up on YouTube or on Locals and wherever it is you decide to join us. Thank you for doing that. All right. So without any further ado, let's get into business on the day. And there was one more photo I wanted to pull up real quickly because I saw it as I was sitting down. And let's see if this is it. Yes, this is it. Okay, perfect. So we're queued up now and let's get to it. Here we go. The media cover-up continues. They're now saying this is not really a race issue, and everybody who's noticing the murder of Iryna Zarutska should just chill out, stop being such a bigot, and more. But new video is coming out of the attack that happened on the Metro, and we're not going to play it because YouTube will probably flag us, and then we won't be able to get into the rest of the content here today. But here is the video. The full thing's on YouTube, and I would encourage you to watch it because this is the aftermath of what happened. And what happens in this 14-second clip is he's just done stabbing her in the neck multiple times. So he's going to throw her head to the side, and then she's going to basically bleed out. Everybody else in the back of the bus is going to get up and go to the front of the bus, and she's just going to kind of fall to the ground and then bleed out very slowly. Now, there's a battle about kind of what happens next, right? The video, you could say that she lies there for 30 seconds, a minute before somebody comes up and helps. And people are walking around as the murderer has just blood dripping down the blade and down his hand because he probably cut himself in his vicious, monstrous attack. So I'd encourage you to watch this. Remember, after George Floyd died of a heart attack and heart failure because he had arteriosclerosis and hypertension and his blood was filled with fentanyl, meth, and other drugs, that was speared in our faces for months, every single day. Here, George Floyd, eat it. Eat it in your face. Watch the knee on the neck. We had guys like Dave Chappelle do entire monologues, 8 minutes and 42 seconds of nobody did anything. Well, we could do the same thing here and ask ourselves when he's going to write a monologue about this, about how she just laid there on the ground and bled out while nobody did anything, or how long she was sitting on the bus before this murderer decided that he didn't like a white woman and he was going to cut her neck wide open. So you can watch the video. I'd encourage you to watch it because this is, I think, a turning point in this conversation. And a lot of people are talking about it, saying like this guy, Clay Martin, you know him. He's the author of The Wrath of Wendigo. What did I just do with that? Did I just close it? He's calling it, one second, let me grab this clip again. But Clay Martin, who is an author and an ex-Green Beret, or I don't think ex, but a Green Beret, he posted this. He says, this can be the face that launches 1,000 ships, or this can be the moment Western civilization went terminal and suicidal. There you go. May she rest in peace. And I think he's right, because this is happening over and over. We can't talk about it unless you're called a bigot or a racist or something like that. And now people have noticed long enough, and there's a lot of fatigue setting in that we can't talk about this when you have got other judges who are releasing these people in contravention to the law, or what the law should be. Now they're calling it being compassionate or whatever for vicious criminals in America. It's sick. So we also then see Charlie Kirk is calling out Van Jones on this, because of course a lot of people don't want this to be about race, especially when it's devastating for their race, if we start talking about it. Charlie Kirk said, hey, Van Jones, you still think this attack on Iryna Zarutska had nothing to do with race? You can hear the audio right here from the murderer himself. Got that white girl. Got that white girl. So if she was a black girl, do you think he would have sliced her neck open multiple times and let her bleed out there? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. But white girl definitely got it. And I think there's a racial component since he's calling it out specifically. She didn't do anything to him. He was just sitting there. He didn't like a white girl sitting right in front of him, so he killed her. Now, Politico is disgusting. So they continue this. They say, a Ukrainian refugee killed in North Carolina gets dragged into a political messaging war. Yeah, she got dragged into the dude's knife by his hand and the knife. That's what happened. And if this was anything else, like if this was obviously reverse, you can do that game all day. You can say, well, what if it's a black guy, a white guy killing a black woman or something like that, and then said, I got that black girl. I got that black girl. What if that happened? Do you think that there would be a national outrage about that? Of course. They burned down cities all over 2020 in the summer, and there was no even evidence of any racial motivation to that at all. George Floyd was committing a crime, and they came and investigated him. He was getting arrested for it. And he probably took a pill at the last minute, which we saw on the trial. He had a pill on his tongue. They showed us. And he had all the stuff in his blood. And they turned it into a sainthood. They basically knighted this dude, gave him a state funeral, and shoved it in our faces because it was convenient for them. It was convenient for their narrative. They even said you could go protest. COVID won't kill you as long as you support BLM. But then when it happens in the opposite way, okay, if it was a Russian, let's say, who killed a Ukrainian on the battlefield over there in the conflict zone, well, then we get Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris unfurling Ukrainian flags all over our Capitol building, perverting the whole place. But if it's a black guy on a white woman, nobody wants to talk about it. Not until they're browbeaten into doing so. And then when they finally do comply, we get this, dragged into a political messaging war. The whole conversation is about crime right now and about this lawlessness on the streets. And don't people have a right for their to not get murdered when they're traveling on the public thoroughfare? People are getting burned. We saw some other illegal murdered some woman, threw her body over a bridge. Another doctor got hacked to death in the park. It's like every single day there's an occurrence of this. And many of these people, what makes it so egregious is their policy failures. And the policy failures are indicative of the Democrat ideology. And there should be consequences for the people who are creating these environments. And if this was, anyways, let's get into the story. So here is Politico. So they posted this. This came over from some intern over here, Jacob Wendler, and he says she's now getting dragged into this, whereas they made a non-existent race issue into a national crisis for months because they wanted to win an election. And this is just not convenient for them. So they posted that. Now, the FBI says, we have been looking into this from the beginning. We've been investigating the train murder from day one. So stay tuned, and we have arrived. We've got now the actual announcement of federal charges for the murderer. DeCarlos Dewan Brown. They say a federal criminal complaint was filed in the U.S. District Court in Charlotte today, charging DeCarlos Dewan Brown Jr., age 34, with a federal crime in connection with the fatal attack of Iryna on the city's light rail system. Brown is charged with 1 count of committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. We had this from Pam Bondi. She posted, she says, Iryna Zarutska was a young woman living the American dream. Her horrific murder is a direct result of failed soft-on-crime policies that put criminals before innocent people. I have directed my attorneys to federally prosecute DeCarlos, a repeat violent offender with a history of violent crime, for murder. And the prior point that I was making is these people shouldn't even be here, is what makes it so egregious. He should not have been out of custody. The process already worked. It worked 14 times. They just kept letting him out. Cops did their jobs. It was the other people who are in the administration of the justice system who let him out. Same thing with the illegals, not even supposed to be here. Yes, I get we can't prevent all crime all the time anywhere, and there's going to be horrific murders. But when the system fails so egregiously, there need to be repercussions for it, and I'm glad to see people waking up. The brutal attack on Iryna, said Cash, was a disgraceful act, here you go, that should have never happened in America, or should never happen in America, which is a little bit different than it should have never happened. He should have been in custody. He already had armed robberies and other things. The FBI jumped in to assist the investigation to ensure that he's never released from jail to kill again. I want to thank Pam Bondi for her pursuit of the federal charges today, because this is a first step towards delivering justice for Iryna and her family, as well as the millions of Americans who deserve to live in our great American cities, free from being targeted by violent criminals, or racist attacks against white people. On August 22nd at approximately 9:55, officers with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department responded to a call for service. We'll read the full indictment, or the full criminal complaint, in a second, but another quote from the U.S. Attorney: the brutal attack on an innocent woman simply trying to get to her destination is an attack on the American way of life. And of course, crimes like this affect the victim the most. Iryna deserves justice, and we will bring justice to her and her family, but crimes like this also affect everyone else who relies on mass transportation. Yeah, you're definitely not sitting on the back of the bus if there's a big group of black people there, and you're a white girl. I mean, now you're thinking twice about that, I would imagine. Says Iryna, and will bring justice to her and her family. But crimes like this also affect everyone. If convicted, Brown faces a maximum statutory sentence of life in prison, and now he's been charged. So I've got all the documents queued up here at the federal and the state level. Let's dive into the criminal complaint, and you can see here is what he's been charged with. A terrorist attack, or, right, not really a terrorist attack, or other violence against the mass transportation system. August 22nd, this story's, kind of old, actually, is when the murder happened, and it's now just capturing attention because people are outraged about it. But the affidavit has been submitted here, and so let's dive in. So I, Cameron Winchester, am special agent with the FBI. I've been a special agent since 2022, assigned to FBI Charlotte. Now, since becoming a special agent, I've investigated a bunch of stuff: criminal street gangs, trafficking, and prior to joining, I was a parole and probation officer. I supervised a gang caseload, and I've done a bunch. Now, the affidavit is presented in support of charging DeCarlos Dewan Brown Jr. with violence against the mass transportation system. And the affidavit contains what is necessary for probable cause, but it's not everything I know. Standard introduction from the FBI. Now, based on my training and experience, I know that the Charlotte area transit system is the largest transit system between Atlanta and Washington, D.C., with multiple local express and regional bus routes, as well as a light rail service called the Lynx Blue Line. Now, this makes it federal because now we're crossing state lines, right? From Atlanta to D.C., it happened on this service. The service operates in interstate commerce, federal jurisdiction. The Lynx Blue Line has 26 stations, spanning 19 miles, with a northern terminus at this location, and it ends over there. And there's regular mass transportation that goes on there. This guy, DeCarlos, is a 34-year-old man who resided in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then on August 22nd at 21:55 hours, officers received a call for service related to assault with a deadly weapon on the Blue Line. They went there. Comments from the 911 call advised a woman had been stabbed by a black male wearing a black shirt, light blue jeans, and an orange hooded sweatshirt. Pretty good description on that. She even got the shirt. So red hooded, yeah, it's pretty good. All right, so that criminal complaint is here. And here's what we've got. Officers responded to the scene and arrested Brown. He was on the outbound Lynx Blue Line, located at the same station as the call for service. They also located a folding pocket knife near the outbound light rail platform. At the time of his arrest, his clothing matched the suspect's description given on the 911 call. Now, additionally, Brown had a laceration in his right hand. He was arrested and then transported to the Atrium Main Hospital to be treated. Now, CMBP located the victim in the rear car of the CATS train at the inbound platform. The victim, subsequently identified as Iryna, IZ, was laying on her back, deceased. She was dead, next to a large amount of blood, with a single stab wound in the middle of her neck and a small cut to her left knee, with her arms by her side, her legs extended out. The victim, Iryna, was wearing a black t-shirt, khaki pants, and black Nike shoes. Crime investigators responded to the scene, collected a pocket knife, which was covered in her blood, in suspected blood, in addition to a red shirt soaked in suspected blood. The police also collected swabs from the suspected blood on the platform and buccal, hand, and fingernail swabs from the victim. They also collected other items in the victim's person and in the seat where the victim sat prior to the attack, swab and everything. They then got surveillance footage from inside the light rail. At 21:46, the victim can be seen entering the light rail car, 21 hours, 46 minutes. So you could start the clock. So like Dave Chappelle could start the stopwatch and he could say, okay, so for how many minutes this guy watched, this guy stalked, this guy was hunting his prey, this guy was plotting his murder for 12 minutes and 45 seconds, whatever. Okay, waiting for that one. At approximately 21:50, Brown pulled a knife. So how long is this? 4 minutes. He sat there plotting. He pulled a knife from his pocket and unfolded the knife before striking the victim 3 times from behind, hacked her to bits. Now, following the attack, suspect blood can be seen dripping on the floor as Brown walked away from the victim there. Based on the information, we request the issuance of a criminal complaint against this dude, and we'll see if he gets indicted later. Based on my training and experience, writes Special Agent Cameron, and the facts, I submit that there's probable cause that this guy did knowingly and without lawful authority commit an act, including the use of a dangerous weapon with the intent to cause death and serious bodily injury on persons on a mass transportation vehicle, which was carrying passengers, and there you go, engaged in interstate commerce. So I was asking myself, what are the feds going to charge him with? And here it is. I request the court issue a criminal complaint and arrest warrant that has happened, signed off on by the judge, Susan C. Rodriguez. And that's happening at the federal level. And so let's see, that happened today. The latest, they dropped a standing order on about the use of artificial intelligence. Okay, so Michael Cohen, don't use ChatGPT for your briefs if you're going to submit an appearance in this case. Okay, hopefully you learned your lesson. So that's all we got on it. It just got filed, but the state charges are moving forward. And so I went over to the North Carolina Judicial Branch, and you can see this is this dude's record right here on full display. Final judgment, no trial, disposed, state so we can just take a look at some of these, like this one right here. This one was disposed of. Looks like a 2024 case, just kind of a random click. Felony probation violation. Great. So he gets convicted of felonies, and then he commits new crimes while on probation. That should be, you are non-bondable, okay? We do not let you out because we already let you out and put you on felony probation, and you can't even abide by your probation. So he's got felony probation violations, and then they just kind of close these things out. And that was an old case, 2013 all the way to 2015, but you get the point, right? If you have these situations over and over and over again, the law generally says you get too many strikes, like 3 strikes, you're out. We're not letting you out if you keep doing it. So he's got a whole laundry list of criminal charges. You can see them all here. Mecklenburg District Court, Guilford District Court, all for this one dude, DeCarlos Dewan Brown. And then we get to the most recent charges. And this is what that docket looks like right here, which is the following. Related cases. Here we can see this was just filed. And here's the docket. So a couple things have happened. Initially, They got an arrest warrant. We'll read through the affidavit. And then they had a release order. There was a modification of a release order, and they're going to be sending this dude in for a mental examination. Okay, so watch him come back. Watch these psychologists come back and say, he's insane. He can't stand trial. And so there will be no, real ultimate criminal prosecution here, and this will all just go away. Watch that happen. I hope it doesn't. It doesn't happen often, but we'll see. So the warrant was issued. Let's get into the documents on the state level charges. You can see here's what we've got. The warrant for the arrest. They've got his photo up there so that they can go capture this dude. Date of the offense. Well, they basically had him in custody anyways, but 1 count, murder. Date of the offense, 8/22/2025, Mecklenburg County. DeCarlos Dewan Brown Jr., he is, according to them, homeless. Okay, so no address for him. So just let him out, run the streets so he can just stab people in the neck. Now, on or about the date of the offense shown, DeCarlos unlawfully, willfully, and feloniously did of malice aforethought, which is the key phrase for murder, actually intentionally thought about it, and murdered her. Pulled out his knife and killed her. So the other offenses, obviously not going to be listed in here, so we don't need to see those. And this is just the rest of kind of the paperwork. If a hearing would have happened, or a trial, it looks like. So very quick warrant for the arrest. Then we get the affidavit. Now, this was submitted by local state police. So this came out from the Charlotte cops in an affidavit saying, DeCarlos Brown, homeless, race African-American, born 1990, age 34. Did he make any statements to the police? Not answered. Is the defendant, what to who and what did he say? Didn't, nothing there on that. When did the incident occur? 2155. And so 2155, when, I wonder if the times are a little different. Now he said, okay, what time did she get on the bus? 2146 is what we thought that was. All right, 2146 to 2155. So maybe he wasn't stalking her for 4 minutes. Maybe he was stalking her for 9 minutes, just like George Floyd. Iryna Zarutska is here. She got medical attention. She is now deceased. She's from unknown relationship. Didn't have any. Happened to be white. Have victim and the defendant ever lived together? No. Does it involve domestic violence? No. Is the victim willing to prosecute? Yeah. Has the victim been prosecuted, the defendant, before? No. Now, what evidence did they gather? Knife, swabs, video, clothing. No other names, no restitution, no credit card frauds, nothing else here of note. No witness names collected. So we don't have any witness names there collected either. Now, then we finally get the reason for the arrest and the very short affidavit. So it's on August 22nd at approximately 2155, Central Division officers received an assault with a deadly weapon call. The call comments included that a female was just stabbed in the throat by a black male wearing a black shirt, light blue jeans, and an orange hoodie. Officers responded to the scene and were directed by witnesses to the location of the defendant, DeCarlos Dewan Brown, who was on the outbound light rail platform. The defendant was wearing the same clothing as described by the 911 callers, had a laceration on the outside of his right hand, was also arrested and transported to the hospital for treatment. A folding knife was located near the outbound platform. The victim was located in the rear car of the train. She was pronounced deceased at 2205. The victim sustained a stabbed wound to the middle of her throat. Detectives obtained the video from inside the train car. The video is clear and of ID quality. The victim enters the train car and sits in the seats directly in front of the defendant, the murderer. The train travels for approximately 4.5 minutes before he pulls a knife from his pocket, unfolds the knife, pauses, stands up, and strikes her 3 times. 4.5 minutes. He sat there and stalked her. 4.5 minutes. Blood visibly drips on the floor as he walks away from the victim. The victim goes unresponsive shortly after the attack. The defendant is the assailant in the video. There appears to be no interaction between the victim and the defendant, and detectives are seeking a charge for murder. And it's also interesting, like, what this doesn't say. I mean, we've read other police reports, and we read the police report of the woman who called the child, who I think was a child, the N-word, and there's a whole police report about like all of the racial elements to this thing. And we didn't see any of that in here. Like, so the cop didn't note that he said, like, did the victim make a statement, make an admission in the videos? He watched the videos. The video is clear and of ID quality. I mean, I think a normal police officer would put in their police report that the defendant made a statement, because that would be an admission, saying, I got that white girl. I got that white girl. Like, you'd put that in there, okay? Because you admitted it. Like, I robbed the bank. I stole the money. I shot the guy. I got the white girl. Like, that absolutely should be in this document, but it isn't, because we know why. So there's a lot of that goes on, right? And it's just how they pervert the cases based on the narrative that they want to say. And cops do this all the time, man. You see, the example that we use often is fleeing the scene, right? Cops will say, they fled the scene. And you can say, you mean he returned home? Like he just went home? No, he fled the scene. So you can really juice up a police report by just leaving out those little inconvenient facts. He made an admission. I got the white girl. We heard it on camera. He watched the video, but the cop didn't want to put it in there for whatever reason, and we know what the reason is. Judge signed off on it. The detective is H.K. Burr Jr., and be curious to know more about that dude. But here you can see is more. So now we've got the conditions and release to see if he'll get out. It's murder, so he's likely going to be non-bondable. We'll see what the doc says. But conditions of release and the release order. So he now has an arrest warrant. He's now been arrested. He's brought in, and they are giving him an order. The judge is hearing him and holding him in custody, essentially, right? So the defendant named above, you're ordered to appear. You got to come back here on the 19th of September at 1:30 p.m. for another court date. Now, at this time, your release is not authorized. And I think they're going to modify this document here in the next document. But the defendant is required. You got to get fingerprints, DNA sample, and nothing else is checked off there. He's in confinement to the custodian. Bring him back here at 10 a.m. for his court date. So this was originally, this was before the 29th. So he's got a 29th date, and it sounds like a September 19th date. No conditions of release, because he's not being released, and nothing really logged there. But there was an updated conditions of release and release order. And you can see in this one, they made this notation here. No bond set pursuant to North Carolina law. So they updated this. They said, there's no bond. Okay, murder charges, we're not letting you out. You're too dangerous. And this guy should have not been out, left out before, because he's got multiple crimes, as we articulated. So that is the arrest warrant. Here is questions about his counsel. So the court completes this form to determine if he needs an attorney appointed to him. Man, I don't see anything on this document signed at all, or any boxes checked. This court completes this form. Also, when a case is declared capital, and it sounds like the judge is just signing off on this order, saying he's going to get an attorney. Capital notice. It's a capital. So they're probably going to be seeking the death penalty. It sounds like first-degree murder. So he didn't check anything on those boxes, which is a little, he could have just said he's charged with first-degree murder. Like, why is that box not checked? I pulled these right from the court. Why is that not checked? I don't know. So that's there. We also then saw this, which is interesting. We've got a redaction on this. Here was the motion on a mental competency exam. Okay, so they'll submit this guy, commit him to the regional hospital over for an examination on his capacity to proceed. And what we'll see in cases like this is they'll go see usually a group of psychiatrists or psychologists or court-appointed people, and they'll do an evaluation. Here, they explain some of it here. In felony cases, a local examination must be ordered before an examination at the hospital if the court finds that a local impartial medical expert or forensic evaluator who is certified is appropriate, is available and appropriate. Okay, so try to do it locally before you ship them out. To order a local examination, call, reach out here, use the form and submit it, and we'll do it. Now, the address for the hospital is over there. And so what'll happen will be, you'll have three possible, maybe psychiatrists who will interview or analyze somebody. First one comes out and says, this dude is insane. Okay. He has no competency to stand trial. Then the next one comes out and says, no, that first doctor's wrong. He can stand trial. He's perfectly competent. He's just a little crazy, but not insane. Like, you can be a little bit crazy, but not insane. You're competent to suffer the consequences of your actions. And if you have that split, then you go to the third mediator to break the tie. But as it stands, we'll see what happens. So they submitted a motion. We don't know what was written back behind here, but it was submitted by the defendant's attorney, who was appointed, also notifying the district attorney over there, Mr. Bill Bunting. And yes, the judge finds the following. The case was heard before the judge. They argued the motion. And the court finds that the defendant's capacity to proceed is in question. He's charged with a felony, and so an examination would be more appropriate at the major center, Central Regional Hospital. That's better over a local evaluation. Saying, so I'm ordering him. We're going to skip the local stuff. He's going to get shipped over to this hospital. They're going to analyze him for observation and treatment for 60 days to determine his capacity to proceed. The moving party shall provide the hospital with a copy of this order, his charging documents. The regional hospital must direct a written report describing the present state of his mental health to the defense attorney and back to the court. The sheriff of the county shall transfer them over to this hospital and shall return them back to the jail once the evaluation is completed. So he'll be over there who knows how long, probably nice and comfy. Upon presentation of a copy of this order, any physician or anybody authorized can furnish copies of all records about everything related to this dude concerning his forensic evaluator and more. And upon request, you can provide documents. The court is saying, turn them over and we'll review them. So the defendant's attorney, he's got an attorney, Daniel P. Roberts, probably assigned, and they'll process him for a medical evaluation, and we'll see. And the dude might be insane, so might just not be competent for trial, and then you can't force him to stand trial because punishing an insane person is not apparently allowed in America. So here's another one. Judgment, order, or other disposition. The defense was moving the court to order the virtual appearance of the defendant in order for the court to conduct first appearance procedures. So now he's being shifted out to the hospitals, so we'll let him appear. The order to the sheriff, allow him to appear virtually for 8/29. That has already come and passed. And so those are the documents. And we see that they, on the other side, BLMers, according to PJ Media, they launched a bunch of GoFundMes, in fact. We saw the video, but the first fundraiser has been deleted. Somebody said we were raising money to assist with legal fees to fight against racism and bias against our people. The original GoFundMe was archived over here. Let's take a look at it and see what we've got. They archived it right here. The original GoFundMe has now been deleted. $10,000 goal. Raising money to assist with legal fees for DeCarlos. Anything helps fight against racism and bias against our people. Thank you for giving us a hand in pushing against this corrupt narrative, says somebody. So I don't know who made that, but another one was also archived and deleted. And people are taking screenshots of it. Ezekiel Rivers was organizing that one. Legal fees. And of course, a lot of them are saying the mental health is the issue. Okay, well, why? That might be true. He might be insane. Why was he let out many times over so he could stab white people in the neck? GoFundMe's terms of service explicitly prohibit fundraisers that raise money for the legal defense of anyone charged with an alleged violent crime. So they canceled those. Consistent with this longstanding policy, these have been removed. And what also happened is the Charlotte mayor, okay, the lady who is running the place, she was very excited that the media partners would not air the video because it's really devastating for her race. And so here is what they said over here from QC News, saying, I'm heartbroken. The mayor responds to the disturbing video. Now, because the video is so disturbing and violent, Queen City News is not going to show it, but the video is horrific. Brown sits for about 4.5 minutes being stalked. No idea what's coming. And then she gets stabbed. Now, the mayor, in a statement posted Saturday, said, the video of the heartbreaking attack that took Iryna, his life is now public. I want to thank our media partners and community members who have chosen not to repost or share the footage out of respect for her family. Yeah, got it. We got it. Like so many of you, I'm heartbroken. And why is the media kowtowing to the mayor? Media partners who just do what she says? Like many of you, I'm heartbroken, blah, blah, blah. You people have created these environments in your crap cities. When it happened, of course, I was very disturbed and I was like, I don't know if I want to take the light rail, said one writer who didn't want her name to be used. Definitely. And you definitely don't want to have a black guy, at least in a hoodie, sitting behind you looking kind of suspicious. So like you take the back of the bus, 100% all the way at the back. So nobody's behind you. I have not noticed a change in security either. I've seen more absent, actually. I feel like I've noticed an increase in security, but only at specific times, like in the morning. And so, yeah, man, I'd be on high alert there if I was taking the metro. Protecting your neck everywhere you go, because apparently there's insane people who will just slice it. Andy, NGO, what's up, Andy? He posted this comment. He said, by every metric, the killing of the young woman in Charlotte, North Carolina was more brutal than George Floyd's death. She was not a violent felon. Nope. Nor was she in the act of committing more crimes like George Floyd was, when she suddenly found herself bleeding out on a train following a knife attack from behind. But politicians won't respond with urgency because they know those outraged won't kill, burn down neighborhoods, occupy entire areas, and rampage like everyone on the left did in 2020. And they were so proud of their riots that they said it made them immune from COVID, if you remember. Everybody had to be locked down unless you were fighting for racial justice. And then suddenly your T cells worked a lot better. Now, JD Vance says, the big lie the Democrats told about violent crime is that it's systemic. And therefore, no one is really responsible. If the system is to blame, then you fund a bunch of nonprofits that don't do anything besides give jobs to underqualified radicals like these people. Like the judge who released him, who also is on the board of a nonprofit, who probably receives government money. The reality is that the gross majority of violent crime is committed by a very small group of people, and we should be throwing them in prison, not letting them out repeatedly. Now, we had more. The president and Karoline were both out. And let's start with Karoline and see what she had to say, because she started her press briefing coming out hot, and here's what it sounded like from the press briefing room.
Today, I would like to address the tragedy that has not received nearly enough media attention, the brutal murder of Iryna Zarutska. Here are the facts that many outlets have shamefully and intentionally failed to report until President Trump drew attention to it. On August 22nd, Iryna Zarutska was stabbed to death on the rail system in Charlotte, North Carolina by a savage career criminal. This is a public transportation system that many in the area use every single day to go to school and work. Iryna was on the train that night traveling home from her job at a pizzeria, still in uniform from her shift. This beautiful, innocent 23-year-old young woman was a Ukrainian refugee who had recently fled her country for a chance at a safer life and a promising new beginning here in the United States of America. But tragically, a public transportation system in a major American city was more dangerous than the active war zone that she left. The president and the entire White House are praying for her family and friends during this unimaginably difficult time. But while we extend our thoughts and prayers, we must also seek justice for this crime and call attention to this heinous incident. Surveillance video of the killing was finally released to the public this past Friday. It shows the alleged killer, DeCarlos Brown Jr., pull out a knife, get up from his seat behind Iryna, and prepare to thrust a blade into her neck before the released footage gets cut. This is pure evil on full display. The most enraging and unacceptable part of this story is that her death was entirely preventable. DeCarlos Brown never should have been on that train that night. In fact, he should have been behind bars. DeCarlos Brown has been charged with crimes no fewer than 14 times, dating back to 2011. Including for armed robbery, felony larceny, breaking and entering, and shoplifting. Brown had previously served 5 years in prison for a robbery with a deadly weapon charge.
Crazy.
And he had also forfeited bonds 3 different times, twice in 2014 and once in 2023. Despite all of this past documented criminal history, when Brown was arrested yet again in January of this past year, a Democrat judge I will add, was a strong supporter of former Vice President Kamala Harris,
of course she was,
released this insane criminal once again without requiring him to pay any bail. He simply had to sign a written promise to return for his court hearing. Think about how crazy it is to ask a career criminal, someone who by definition repeatedly breaks the law, to just sign a written promise and come back again another day. This is madness. This monster should have been locked up, and Iryna should still be alive. But Democrat politicians, liberal judges, and weak prosecutors would rather virtue signal than lock up criminals and protect their communities.
That's right.
And perhaps most shamefully of all, the majority of the media, many outlets in this room, decided that her murder was not worth reporting on originally because it does not fit a preferred narrative.
Yes.
Many of the journalists in this room spilled plenty of ink trying to smear Daniel Penny for defending a subway car from a deranged lunatic in New York City, but none of those same reporters lift a finger to write stories about an actual murderer.
Daniel was white.
Here's the truth that every American must know. Too many innocent people across the country continue to pay the price of the failed experiment known as cashless bail that has been championed by the Democrat Party for years. All the way back in 2020, North Carolina's then Democrat Governor Roy Cooper established a so-called task force for racial equity in criminal justice. Sounds nice, but it's not. That task force was co-authored by then Attorney General and current Democrat Governor Josh Stein. It recommended, quote, reimagining public safety to, quote, promote diversion and other alternatives to arrest. It also advised to de-emphasize some felony crimes, prioritize, quote, restorative justice, and eliminate cash bail. Democrats in North Carolina and nationwide are consumed with pushing a woke, soft-on-crime agenda, no matter how many innocent Americans suffer as a result. Instead of aggressively prosecuting and locking up violent criminals, the Democrat-backed cashless bail approach lets these criminals roam free in our country to offend again and again. These reckless policies have turned too many of American cities into hunting grounds for career criminals who mock our justice system, drain law enforcement resources, and wreak havoc on law-abiding citizens. Enough is enough, and that is why President Trump is doing everything in his power by taking action to undo these absurd policies. The president recently signed a powerful executive order directing the AG to submit a list of states and local jurisdictions with cashless bail policies so that the Trump administration may identify federal funds that are being provided to these states and can potentially be suspended or terminated. President Trump firmly believes that to maintain order in public safety, we must incarcerate individuals whose pending criminal charges or criminal history demonstrate a clear, ongoing risk to civil society. This is a common sense and sensible approach that the vast majority of Americans agree with, and it's time for the Democrat Party to get on board with what is right. When these criminals are caught, they must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and be sent to prison, where they can no longer terrorize our streets. This is the mandate the American people delivered to President Trump, and it's a mandate he intends to fulfill.
We'll see what happens in North Carolina. Now, here was the president responding to this, very unhappy about what has happened to Iryna, and not just her, but as a symbol of a very broken system in largely Democrat dumpsters. And as the president, he's got an obligation to protect the citizens. I mean, our government, if they're supposed to do anything at all, it's to help ensure we don't get stabbed in the neck.
For far too long, Americans have been forced to put up with Democrat-run cities that set loose savage, bloodthirsty criminals to prey on innocent people. Really very, very innocent people. In every place, they control radical left judges, politicians, and activists, and they've adopted a policy of catch and release for thugs and killers. In Charlotte, North Carolina, we saw the results of these policies when a 23-year-old woman who came here from Ukraine met her bloody end on a public train. And here's a picture of it. This is the picture of it. And this is a picture of the woman, a beautiful young girl that never had problems in life. with a magnificent future in this country. And now she's dead. She was slaughtered by a deranged monster who was roaming free after 14 prior arrests. We cannot allow a depraved criminal element of violent repeat offenders to continue spreading destruction and death throughout our country. We have to respond with force and strength. We have to be vicious just like they are. It's the only thing they understand. 24 of the top 25 most dangerous cities in America are run by Democrat mayors. 50 people were murdered in Chicago in recent weeks, with hundreds being shot. And it's time to stop this madness. The people of our country need to insist on protection, safety, law, and order. We have proven that it can be done because we did it right here in D.C., in District of Columbia. The capital of America was a bloodthirsty, horrible, dangerous place, one of the worst. And now it's a crime-free city, and we're going to keep it that way. It can be done. It can happen fast. All we want is, please, Mr. President, we need help. Chicago needs help. Other cities need help. We'll do what has to be done because we're going to make America safe again, and that includes our big cities. We're going to make those cities safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for bringing attention to this case and this matter from the Oval Office behind the resolute desk, saying, yeah, it is time to get vicious with these maniacs. Stop, being browbeaten by them into being called a bigot or a racist or something for demanding safety and security in your daily life. There's this phrase called the point of the system is what it does. And they can come out every day and talk about humanitarianism, or we're going to rehabilitate people, or we're going to use the little, fluffy teams of people to come talk to people and talk them off of a murder or something like that. Whatever the community response teams or whatever they were calling themselves after they didn't want the police to handle these things. So if the system results in 50 dead people in Chicago repeatedly, what is the government doing, honestly? How can the Democrats come out with a straight face and say, we're going to give you universal health care, we're going to stop climate change, we're going to stop the whole planet from warming and all these things? They can't even lock up career criminals in their own cities. They're totally incompetent. And then they turn around and say they should get more money, more resources, more votes, as they're all grifting off of the entire process, forming their own nonprofits or community centers or whatever, releasing criminals, getting money on the back end to support the criminality. It's insane. We're all tired of seeing it, and it's happening across the board. It's not any one particular race or any one particular segment of society. It's a failure at a systemic level because of horrific policies. And the government, at bare minimum, is supposed to just make sure, again, you have this concept of negative liberty versus positive liberty. FDR and the libs say the government should give you everything. You're entitled to a good job. You're entitled to free health care. You're entitled to child care. You're entitled to all these things because we love you. All right, it's positive liberty. It's a misnomer. It's really slavery. But at bare minimum, the government's role, what is the function of the government? To make sure you don't get killed, right? To ensure some law and order, to help you when your house is burning down or when somebody's invading you. They're supposed to be good at this, and they're not in many locations. And so we're happy to see some actual sanity back in this space so that people stop getting killed on the metro. All right, good stuff on that segment. Let's turn our attention to something a little bit more fun, the January 6 cases. The new January 6 committee is being formed right now, and the Democrats are trying to shove some of the biggest clowns ever onto the committee. People like Mr. Bang Bang, who made Bang Bang with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy, Stinky Eric Swalwell, Jasmine Crockett, who is harder to understand every single day that she speaks. It's wild. And other people like Moskowitz are going to be put on, maybe, this new Republican-led January 6 Select Committee. We're going to come to that. But what about the old committee? What's going to be happening with them? Well, Ed Martin was on with Maria Bartiromo, and he was talking about this. Here's what he had to say.
Real quick, what about the January 6th committee? Did they destroy evidence? Is there criminality there?
Yes.
Of course. Of course, we're all in that too. And trust me, a lot of people did not get a pardon that were involved in the select committee, and they ought to be keeping an eye on their mailbox, because there's a lot to be asked about.
And the pardons that were given out were done by an auto pen. Are they legitimate?
Well, yeah, I'm the pardon attorney, so I'm in that too. I can tell you we're investigating how the pardons were granted. It was not like anything in the history of America what not Joe Biden, his staffers did, not just with the auto pen, but with faking him out on the memos. More to come, Maria. I'm telling you, Pam Bondi has let us loose, and when this comes out, it'll take the whole of these people's hoaxes down, and we're doing it bit by bit, and it's fantastic. It's a great privilege.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it makes me happy, makes me smile. I love the sound of that. I hope it actually happens. Now, here's more, because Ted Cruz came out. You know, he's kind of like a legal scholar, he says. He also has a podcast. Make sure you subscribe to it. Somebody, please. Here is what he said. If Joe Biden did not make these pardon determinations on a person-by-person basis, his pardons are legally null and void. Thank you, Ted.
Joe Biden, as far as I can tell, he had no awareness of anything. I don't know that I'd let Joe Biden handle the remote control on the television, much less make a decision. And it was elder abuse by everyone around him for doing that. But the legal question, if he did not make the determination person by person, that is legally null and void.
Woo! Yeah, Liz Cheney, did you hear that? You're next. Here is some more. So our friend Representative William Timmons, he's over from South Carolina. He also posted this. He says, hey, January 6th Select Committee, you guys better be getting ready, because we're coming for your booties.
Buckle up, because we're going to get to the bottom of what the nonsense Select Committee for January 6th. There's a reason that everybody on that committee was pardoned.
Yeah.
It's because they were not telling the truth.
Because they're criminals, is what I was going to say.
They were lying to the American people. Look, we all know that what happened on January 6th, 4 years ago, was bad. It was awful. A number of people assaulted law enforcement. That's unacceptable. But the narrative that the Democrats have had for the last 4 years is not true. It's false. They embellish, they lie, and we're going to show them exactly what happened. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to find out why President Biden pardoned all of the members of the January 6th committee. And guess what? Because they're pardoned, they don't have an excuse not to come in and testify before us. So we're going to get to the bottom of this, particularly the members that are no longer in office. Expect a subpoena soon.
Yeah, man, happy to hear it. So they better be getting subpoenas, because they were criminals, all of them. That's why they all got pardoned. If they did such a good job, how come they deleted all the evidence before they gave it over to the House Administration Committee when they were turning the power over to the Republicans? How come they did all that? Well, we know why. How come they didn't investigate all of the agents that Homeland Security had out there? How come they didn't tell us about the FBI, confidential human sources, that outnumbered the Proud Boys? And they didn't even allow us to talk about Homeland Security and all the feds there that were there. Remember, FBI had their own feds. Then, I mean, by the way, and I would imagine there's many more agencies, but the biggest other one other than the FBI was HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. We covered the trial, the Proud Boys trial. They had identified 50 people who were who were in the crowd, but they couldn't talk about them because the judge said, well, Homeland's not prosecuting them. It's just the FBI. So it's not relevant to the case if they're there. I mean, they did what they did, so the judge just excluded it. So we're looking forward to hearing all of that. And I think we covered like one or two of the committee hearings. They were such a joke. The committee itself was illegitimate. You can read the rule. HR 503. Pull it up. It's the operative fact. We've done it many times here. The operative document that created the committee and enabled them and gave them their so-called power. And it was illegally constituted. The rule said had to be 5 Republicans. They put 2 on there. It said that they had to be picked in consultation with the minority leader. They didn't do that. Nancy Pelosi just picked them because she didn't want Jim Jordan on there. And the list went on, but it was illegitimate. They were supposed to consult with the minorities for certain rules and certain proceedings. There was supposed to be, I think, a minority chair. There was not a minority chair because there was only Liz and Kinzinger on there. It was a scam. And then when you sued and you challenged the subpoena of Congress, the courts in D.C., said, well, we can't interfere with a separate branch of government. We can't tell Congress what they can do inside the halls of Congress. And so if in the chambers they issue subpoenas to other people, they have to govern themselves. And the process to challenge that is political. And so just vote them out. So Liz Cheney and Pencil Neck Schiff and the rest of the cowards who all accepted their pardons and didn't refute them, how come Shifty Pencil Neck didn't reject his pardon? If you're so innocent, I don't need that pardon. For what? January 6th committee work? I did my job by the books. We know you didn't. And that's why they're running scared. So Stinky Eric Swalwell came out, and you can see they brought all these people out. We're not really going to listen to them because they're just horrific to listen to. Here's just a short soundbite.
Congressman Eric Swalwell, as the ranking member, the lead Democrat on this subcommittee, and the House Democratic Caucus will be in good hands with Congressman Swalwell, with Representative Jasmine Crockett, and Representative Jared Moskowitz, all with the steady hand of ranking member Jamie Raskin. I yield now to my good friend, the Congressman from the great state of California, Eric Swalwell.
Okay, so that's going to be the team, like the Democrat Avengers team. So here's this guy who made Bang Bang with the Chinese spy called Fang Fang.
December 7, 1941, September 11, and January 6.
Oh, this is going to be just terrible. All right. So again, Pearl Harbor. Well, he got Pearl Harbor this time. Usually they say the Civil War. Usually it's like the Civil War, 9/11, a 4-hour riot. They're so pathetic. They're so pathetic. And I can't wait for us also to talk about the so-called cops who died on January 6th and smash that ridiculous hoax moving forward. So these maniacs will be there. Nobody can even understand Jasmine Crockett now anymore. I don't know what's going on with her. We have a clip of her coming up. Here is a little bit of what she had to say.
Together. And because of the work that was done on that select committee, we ended up with a number of indictments. And when I say a number, I'm not talking about 5 or 6. I'm talking about well over 1,000 people that were indicted. And then after being indicted, meaning that a grand jury was able to hear the evidence. Yeah,
we know. A D.C. grand jury, the same D.C. grand juries who don't indict people who physically on camera assault cops with Subway sandwiches. Won't indict them, even though it's an attack on a federal officer. So that's Jasmine. We could understand her on that one, and the subtitles helped, so that was good. But we've also got more from Ed Martin, because he was on with Matt Gaetz, and I wanted to share some of this. We've got these two people used to be in the government talking about what's coming next. Here is the clip.
Are you confident with what you're able to get access to and assess that you're going to be able to very thoroughly make your prosecutorial judgments?
Well, look, I've been involved with our mutual friend Tulsi Gabbard at DNI, and she has gone, and I hope people have tracked what I call the birthday of the Russia hoax, which was revealed by Tulsi.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It actually was born on Friday, December 9th, 2016, and it was done by the Obama White House in a special meeting, aided by the Washington Post. This is in the record. This is indisputable. This is not like me and you debating. And what we go forward from there, and you say that was the Russia hoax that was used to almost cripple the Trump administration by design. Then you go forward to 2020, and you say, what happened on January 6th and afterwards? And to your point, Matt, what they did with this select committee was they weaponized the power of Congress. They were aided by the media, and they were often aided by the Article 3 courts and the prosecutors. And they took the hoax and they pounded out a message. And frankly, they brainwashed 40% of the country, 50% of the country. There's still people are still sick with it because they were lied. So what is our goal? One is to hold people that do things that are destructive and against the law accountable. I want to do that. We're going to do that. I promise you. But we're also trying to get to the truth. And so when you have a Tulsi Gabbard who can say, here was some of the truth, I can tell you, we've been going through the records, emails of this Department of Justice from the Biden era, and we're seeing who was doing what. I'll give you a quick example. They put everybody on January 6th that was arrested, minus maybe 100, onto the terrorism watch list. And when you said, wait a second, you're on the terrorism watch list, why? You're supposed to be a terrorist or a member of a terrorist group or another criteria. The other criteria was we just wanted to put you on. And when you were pardoned by Donald Trump, all 1,500 plus went off the terrorism watch list. Well, that just proves it wasn't a terrorism watch list. It's a list to punish you when you go to the airport. And that's what they did. We have numbers that the IRS.
And they targeted so many people. So to respond to Jasmine's comment of like 100, like there were like 1,500 total prosecutions, more or less. And a huge portion of those were nonviolent. Okay. And so like 1,000 criminal charges is not a lot. And they spent like 4 years prosecuting, rounding everybody up. Many of those charged were simple trespassing cases. Okay. And they acted like it was the crime of the century. You entered into a restricted area. Okay. It's like being at a bar in Old Town. It's the same case. It's a different building. And there's a little added complexity is that maybe some of those people don't live in that jurisdiction, but it's a trespass case. You weird lunatics. It is not the crime of the century. It was a public protest that lasted for 4 hours. Then they lied to us saying that Brian Sicknick was killed and all of these other cops who died by suicide were murdered on that day. That is still a fake hoax that I'm still hearing from these lunatics on the left in their little interviews.
We're auditing J6 targets in a higher percentage than other groups. This is all the use of government against the people. And I'll just finish with this, Matt. You've seen this, you know this, you've been aware of it, but we've never seen what happened in the Biden administration, the use of government against the American people. We've never seen it in our history. And so am I confident we're going to get to the bottom of it? Yes, because I got to get up in the morning early and work hard all day. But it is a fight, and it is a fight because people have deleted, they've disappeared, they've moved on, they've tried to say, don't talk about it, get on with it. President Trump has said, we're going to get to the bottom of it. I'm also involved in the 2020 election and the 2016 election to get to the bottom of what happened. We're going to have grand juries. We're going to pull people in. And the one thing I'll say over and over again, Matt, it won't surprise you, it's the same people that were at the Russia hoax birthday party. It's the same people overlapping over and over again. And what Rudy Giuliani said once, and he knows better than anybody in our American history, when you put these people together and they're always working together, that's called an enterprise. That's called a criminal enterprise.
Rico.
And you're in territory where everybody's held accountable for the whole of it. And that's what we're seeing.
Rico! That's where he's going with that. So, good updates from Ed Martin. And man, it's music to my ears, but we want to see it actually come to fruition. And so we're holding out hope that there is going to be some money where the mouth is, and we're looking forward to it. And I'm sure that Liz Cheney right now is having a rough day, and so is Pencil Neck, because hopefully they're getting subpoenas soon. All right, now we got one final update, my friends, and then we'll hear from you. The victims are objecting. Big surprise. They don't want more evidence to come out. Evidence that would help everybody understand the validity of their claims. Instead, what's happening is we have this little black box that nobody can peer inside. They know what's in it. Like, oh yeah, there's evidence, tons of names, thousands of girls, victims all over the place, billionaires, names of royalty. All that. Can we see? No. Well, you have all the evidence. Can we see it? No. Well, can you make your own list and release it to us? No, we're not going to do that either. Why should we, is what they said at their press briefing. Now they're putting it in writing. They submitted this in the Jeffrey case. And what happened in the Jeffrey case is the news media submitted a request to unseal some records, okay? And now the victim's lawyer is responding. The crime victim law firm is writing into the judge. They say, all right, judge, pursuant to your order, you asked us to respond to this. The media wants to unseal these records, and we're responding as you ordered us to. Now, consistent with the reasoning in a prior order, particularly the discussions at pages 8 to 9, it is imperative that these names remain sealed, as disclosure poses a real threat to victims' safety and privacy and would be in violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. It guarantees fairness, privacy, conferral, and protection. And so Bradley Edwards, I believe he spoke at that press conference, he's saying, we object. The letter submitted indicates the network does not intend to reveal sensitive information about victims, and as such, it would be the hope of the undersigned that the request is mooted by the nature of this correspondence. And our position has likewise been expressed to the Department of Justice. We object to the unsealing request signed by Bradley Edwards, who's representing a bunch of the victims. And so again, how come they can't just give us the names? They had the entire media watching them. I think the most reasonable explanation is if a lot of this stuff gets unsealed, their claims that they were involved or that there was evidence of third parties is not going to be in there. They probably know that. And so if they are opening up the black box and we see it's empty, then their claims and all of their power gets evaporated. So they object to it so it doesn't get unsealed, so they can continue to say whatever they want because nobody can validate it at all. And apparently the DOJ continues to release evidence. Oversight Committee continues to release evidence, and there's nothing inside. Oversight Committee came out and say they release records provided by the Epstein estate. They said today, the Committee on Oversight released records provided by Epstein's estate pursuant to James Comer and his subpoena that he sent over. But he said, it's appalling that Democrats on the Oversight Committee are cherry-picking documents and politicizing information. They have politicized the whole thing. So have the victims, which makes it a lot harder to empathize with them and to question their motives. Is it an anti-Trump motive? Is it a money-making motive? How come they won't release any of the evidence? We're supposed to just believe all women and don't victim shame, but we're just supposed to believe them when they haven't given us anything. And when we have a whole press conference that we dedicate over an hour to, they come out and they call it a therapy session. And then when we ask, can you just release the names? Why should we? Was their literal response to this. So, and they had signs, Trump, and they talked about Mar-a-Lago and the whole thing. So have a lot less empathy for them if they're going to politicize it and not tell us what's in the files. How can you support their claims? Trump is not accused of any wrongdoing, and Democrats are ignoring the new information the committee got. The committee will pursue additional bank records on this new information. Democrats must decide if their priority is justice for the survivors or politics. Obviously, it's politics. They weren't even talking about Epstein until it became, I think, an error, an own goal by the Trump administration. If they would have just released the records, the Democrats would have not had anything to jump on, but they didn't. So Oversight came out. They dropped these records. I'll share them with you. And the first document we've already seen, essentially. Okay, this is the Black Book document. Bunch of names on here. We've covered this many times. We covered the entire Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Tons of names in here. And it's the Black Book, right? Trump's name's in there. Everybody's name's in here. He knew everybody. So this is the whole book. We don't need to spend time on it. It's all noted, Xerox, copied in there. And so some people were saying, well, is that the list? No, it's like a phone book. And the phone book was on the side of the bed along with everybody's names. And we read through it, read about it in the House manual. Now, here's some more exhibits, confidential stuff. More names, more phone numbers. And this looks like it's a visitor's massage. Visitor's massage. Looks like a bunch of phone numbers there. Look at all these names. Wow. Very interesting. Maybe one of them can come out and tell us something. Karoline has a star next to her. Okay. Don't know what that's about. But here's more notes. Emails, Secret Service personnel. These might be officers' notes or something happening here. So lists of numbers, lists of names. That's what we got in the first document. So nothing really is even there. Epstein's estate sent this over, and that's the full document. So I was just basically scrolling to the end, and so you can see what's in it. All right, so that's what we've got. It's 99 pages long. It's the Black Book. All right, so we've seen that before. Here is another request, which is the non-prosecution agreement, which we've already seen before. This was the most insane non-prosecution agreement, and it exonerated, I would argue, Ghislaine Maxwell. And the courts didn't agree with that, but there was a section in here about the co-conspirators also being immunized. Epstein shall make a binding recommendation. This agreement is contingent. The terms are incorporated. And that's the deal. Non-prosecution agreement for Jeffrey Epstein. Already seen that. Nothing new there. Here's the last will and testament of Epstein. Okay. So they executed that. The estate has that. And how many pages is this? 10 pages. That's all we got out of that one. So he has a last will and testament. Okay. And then there's some juiciness in this one. Now, finally, we get the final tranche. Now, this puppy's about 238 pages, and there's some very curious photos in here and lots of names showing up. Some of this redacted, girlfriends redacted, Brooklyn's individuals redacted. Named the family. Named friends. And we don't know whose name that is. Children, friends. Ron Altbach, Leon Black, Jean-Luc Brunel, Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, and Bill Elkus as friends, right? So Bill Clinton, like, where's the Democrats screeching about Bill Clinton? Why are they screaming about Trump? Oh, because it's political. Yeah, we know. We got all these other names. Trump is on there too. We've got Joel Pashnow, Nathan, George Michael, bunch of names here, Leslie Wexner, and more. Mort Zuckerman. Science people all listed here. Kind of looks like this is the birthday book, right? So this is the first 50 years, the birthday book. So it's like the memo. Here's the table of contents. All your special assistants, their names are redacted. The girlfriends, their names are redacted. So we got it. So then there's just a series of letters. And again, this book is like 230 pages. So we'll just kind of fast forward through a lot of it. Looks like, Cub Scout graduation, some photos. Epstein from the 70s, Epstein in band class, moving boxes, going on a train ride, hugging people. Here's family now, sharing some photos. And there's some spicy photos coming up, so just hang tight. But lots of letters coming in, all to Jeffrey, happy birthday, we love you. 2 simpler days, happy 50th birthday from somebody. More photos with an accordion. Here's some people from Brooklyn. We're on page 36 now. This is the Seagate Chronicle. News articles, beach attack. Okay. Bunch of news articles. Fast forwarding through all of that. Here's more. Warren Eisenstein completed an approved course in driver's ed from June 7th, 1969. Somebody got a ticket or something. All right. So we fast forward. There's Jeffrey Epstein in some photos, doing some work on the cars. And this photo is capturing a lot of attention right here. There's Epstein. Yeah, I mean, looks like he takes care of himself. He's probably burning a lot of calories doing whatever he was doing. So interesting photos, I guess different times. Not sure that I would, join in on a photo like that. Kind of a weird photo for these dudes. But I don't know. Maybe that was the style, like everybody wore those clothes and then stood in saunas together. I don't know. So there's a girl on a boat. There's more stories there. And there's another letter here. Class yearbooks, all here, fast forwarding through the documents. And we're going to get to the big one in a second here. So those people redacted. Twain JHS, Mark Twain JHS, American flag right there. More notes, class officers, old class mementos, some music, another image of the book, more music, and it just keeps going. More music. All right, so that continues on. We're going to get to the Trump alleged letter in a second. There's Jeffrey out by the pool. Epstein in the car, on airplanes, on his private jet, out in the snow, skiing somewhere. And then we get Ghislaine Maxwell. And then we get some photos of Epstein in hotels. Lots of redacted faces here. I don't know who those people are. Here's a happy birthday from Ghislaine. Full frontal of Ghislaine. She seems happy. What's this one? Children. All the kids are writing letters. Oh, gosh. Here comes the bride, all dressed in white. Where is the groom? He's in the ladies' room. What is his reminder that to work on this binder is going his doggy? Gosh. Oh, gosh. There's photos of kids in the birthday book. Oh, gosh. Friends. All right. So here's some friends who are going to go rob a bank or something. There's Epstein and redacted. There's Epstein and a bunch of people. Don't know who those people are. Somebody else wrote this note to Jeffrey. Vanity Fair poster child. No excuses. Something's happening here. And some more photos coming out. More notes. Was this math? Oh, gosh. The quadratic equation. Here's another one. from Bill Clinton, they said. Jeffrey, happy 50th. It's, what the heck does that say? I can't even read it. Unwavering and knowing. All right, I'm gonna have to ask maybe some AI to read that for us. Let's see what it comes up with in a second. All right, so we've got that. We've got Jeffrey. Here's another birthday letter. Vanity Fair article. Who was the man with Epstein? Comic letter from Bill Elkis. More photos redacted. Don't know what that is. Some charts. Once upon a time, an intelligent note. Someone here. There's Epstein looking out, pondering things. Some other person's photo redacted there. And we just keep going. So let's see where we're at. We're at 144 pages now. Happy birthday, Jeffrey. We love you. Lots of other birthday stuff going on here. We've got some animal photos. Oh, gosh. What is it with these freaks? Happy 50th birthday from Joel. Bunch of weird photographs of women. Look at this. Look at this photo. That's pretty disgusting. And Epstein with the kids. This is horrific. So, yeah, this is all in his photo. These people are monsters, man, right? This is monstrous. This is like basically demons acting in, sharing who they are publicly so that they can reveal themselves. Pretty horrific. So, dear Jeffrey, a lot more going on here. Someone drew an airplane. The Trump letter, alleged Trump letter is coming up somewhere. Here it is. So here, right, this is the letter that they say now exists. And that they say this is Donald's signature, which doesn't look anything like his signature. And Karoline is going to come back out and say this is not anything that he wrote, and he's litigating over this, and he'll stand by the fact this is not his, and discovery will happen. And so we're looking forward to seeing what that is exactly. But that's the letter, and that's the Trump memo that's in there. More like boobs are in there. Bush's face redacted. Somebody else's face redacted. Science people all wrote some letters for him. The Mathematics of Life, 188 pages, some, geometry. Okay. And girlfriends. Let's see here. Lots of redactions here. Jeffrey. So, you would get a book of all your past exes who are going to write for you? What a weird thing. Don't they move on? Why would they write back? Why would you have a book of butts in here? These people are freaks. So, yeah. I mean, it'd be nice to have some evidence from these victims so that they could tell us. Was it only Epstein? Or who are the other people who were here? Because Epstein's allegedly dead. And, yeah, it's just, all right. So, you get the point. That's the Epstein file. That's the birthday book. The rest of it's the girlfriend stuff. There's business stuff here. Here's him outside. And the book ends right here. To the next 50 years. Happy birthday, lots of love. All right, so that's what they're saying is in existence. The Epstein estate just released that. Here's what Karoline Leavitt had to say in response.
In fact, I have already seen many forensic analysts of signatures coming out. I believe it was the Daily Signal that published a piece with 3 separate signature analysts who said that this absolutely was not the president's authentic signature. And we have maintained that position all along. The president did not write this letter. He did not sign this letter. And that's why the president's external legal team is aggressively pursuing litigation against the Wall Street Journal, and they will continue to.
All right, so we'll see. There'll be discovery and we'll have some litigation over it, and we'll be looking forward to finding out more about it. But it's a bizarre case. I mean, obviously these people are disgusting and monstrous. Who would put together a smut book like this for somebody's 50th birthday? Go get a bunch of, it's really horrific. So the question is, was it beyond Epstein and Maxwell? Were other people involved? We would like to know about that so that the investigation can go forward. But as it stands, no one's really helping on that. We get the Epstein estate comes out. Nope, nothing really there. Victims come out. Nothing really there. NBC News tries to file an unsealing request. Victims object to it. So we'll keep our eye on the news around this one, but kind of feels at this point like we're just going in circles on this thing. Victims don't really want any progress. All the documents that come out are mostly empty or already released. So we'll see if anything comes of it. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, my friends. What a beautiful day it has been. Thank you for joining us and thank you for being here. And let's see what you have to say about all of this. If you're just joining us, quick recap on what we talked about. We talked about Iryna and the new criminal charges that have been filed against this maniac who is now charged both federally and at the state level. We read through all the documents, the arrest warrants, the release conditions, the affidavits from the local cops, and went through reaction on this. President Trump talking about it, Karoline Leavitt talking about it, J.D. Vance talking about it, and more. Even Andy, NGO, is talking about it. Shout out to Andy. So we got that. Then we talked about J6 stuff. Ed Martin saying we're coming in hot for the J6ers. Get ready for subpoenas. Lots of reaction on that. The Democrats appointed some of the biggest clowns in their party to lead the Democratic side. And the Epstein victims object to any unsealing because of their safety and their privacy. And the Epstein estate released some records. The big drop was the alleged Trump birthday card, but litigation and the White House are saying it's not his. And so we'll go through it and see what they say in court. But my friends, now it's time to hear from you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for supporting our work with your donos, your membership, your viewership, and your never-ending love. Thank you for being here. We got some great comments coming in. Thank you, Donut and John, for clipping for us on the day. Woo, look at these comments, baby. Thank you for sending these in. Hey, it's Bruce Wayne. Good to see you, Bruce Wayne, in the house, saying this should go towards Joey's printer. So he sent me a print. He's looking at printers right now, and he'll be getting one. We have to find the right one. Here's another one. What's this image? The Michigan AG just went crazy after a judge dismissed the case against the fake electors today. She had an epic meltdown. Michigan judge tosses case against 15 accused fake electors from President Trump. Well, dang, that sounds like a great one. Okay, we'll come back to that story. That sounds fun. We got this one from Mock Schnell. Hey, Mock Schnell. Oh, my goodness. Look at this very generous dono. Thank you, Mock Schnell. Those markets must be doing well for you. Says, hey, Rob, as usual, great job on enlightening all of us. So here is a direct donation to you for Joey's birthday present and for you and Joey and Alexis so you can take him and Alexis to a nice dinner. Mock Schnell, thank you for that. We'll go. We'll have to go out tonight, I guess. It's a nice dono, so we're going to have to go eat something good tonight. We appreciate that. Thank you for that. My brother Joey's in town. He's amazing. And he's making cameos on the morning stream. I don't know if he'll make a cameo on this stream, but I'm sure he will. Mock Schnell, really generous of you, my friend. Thank you for doing that. It's going to go straight to Joey and his caloric consumption and his printer. So we appreciate that. Thank you very much for that one. Chubby, now I'm actually starting to wonder if Trump actually did mean the whole Epstein thing was a hoax. After that ridiculous presser where they refused to disclose anything while lamenting that Trump and the government wasn't disclosing anything, and now they're fighting against disclosure? Sorry, they're full of it. Screams one big giant scam to me at this point. It certainly begs the question about their motivations, 100%. If they really want justice, if they really want the other abusers to be punished, you should come out and name them. If you want money and settlements, if you want to write book deals, if you want, I mean, as long as there's evidence there, but if there's no evidence there, then you'd want to seal it so nobody can see that you don't have anything. That way you can just run your mouth as much as you want. Chubby, this was supposed to be a dono. This is what I get for trying while fighting a migraine. Man, migraines are terrible. Hopefully that passes soon, Chubby. Cold towel, right? Bezzy, justified outrage. White celebrities are odd. No post from Mark Ruffalo or Lady Gaga on this. I haven't seen one major white actor or singer post about her. Hope she gets the justice she deserves. No, of course not. No, they were taking a knee. Remember, all at BLM. And I think I saw a post that Iryna had a Black Lives Matter, poster in her bedroom, right? So she's even in it. It's like a suicidal concept. So, it's a weird phenomenon that's happening where everybody will dogpile on one issue when it's not even, George Floyd died of his heart failing, not of being asphyxiated. The coroner who testified at the trial, who actually did the exam, said that explicitly. His heart just gave out. Drugs, arteriosclerosis, hypertension. And he was being arrested, and he was complaining about his breathing before he was even on the ground, okay? When he was in the back of the car, we called that out during the trial. So, and they were hyperventilating over this, okay? They turned it in to something that it wasn't. Now we have a real, heinous crime that we all watched happen, where the dude in the aftermath says, "I got that white girl," and nobody wants to talk about it. Don't make it about race. It's definitely not about race. But if it happens the other direction, then it's obviously about race and the male white patriarchy. You remember Letitia James coming out in that stupid clip? Too male, too pale, and too stale. Remember she was saying that? A state attorney general, too male and too pale, too white, is her refrain. What is that? We can't comment about that without being called a bigot? Leonard, what's up? Dems want to hide this murder because they want to destroy Western civilization. It's a great comment. Yeah, and I think that's essentially true. They want to wreck the family. They want to wreck your nationalism, wreck your culture, wreck your education, wreck your health, wreck your public safety, enable criminality across the board. If you were going to systematically use fifth generation warfare to destroy a country, enabling crime in the name of diversity would be one way to do it, okay? Because one of government's first responsibilities is to protect you from being murdered. And even that is not really, a right. Like if you call 911 and the cops don't show up and you're being murdered, you can't sue the cops for not coming to stop your murder, okay? It's your own problem. They have no obligation to come save you. That's the law. But that's what gives them legitimacy, okay? Thomas Hobbes talked about this in the Leviathan. The natural state of nature is that it is a warring, horrific state of nature where everybody's killing each other. And unless we have some sort of governance, then that's going to continue to happen. So even before John Locke and that, new litany of Western thinking came about, they were recognizing that if government has any legitimacy, it's to stop you from being murdered. Why else would you form a government? Rick D, what's up? Hey, Rob, just thought you and Joey might like this. You can have his name added to the Artemis 2 mission to order the moon, and they make a boarding pass with his name on it. That sounds awesome. You say you want that for Joey? I kind of want to get that for me. I want my name on there to the Artemis mission. All right, I'll get Joey one too. That's fine too. All right, thank you, Rick D. Of course, Rick would send this comment, Artemis 2 mission. He's halfway to Artemis 2 out of an airplane 50,000 feet, 35,000 feet. Economath, what's up? Non-punishment of non-compos goes back to Blackstone and Pryor. They aren't punished, but they're confined because they legally can't form the required criminal intent. Yeah, of mentally incompetent. Yeah, because if you're insane, crimes really have two components to it, right? You've got an action and a mental state called a mens rea and an actus reus. Mens rea is the guilty mind, Latin phrase. Actus reus is the physical act. So murder, as we read here today, was malice aforethought. It's kind of the intent of the mind. You had this malice in your brain, and then you acted on it by stabbing her in the neck. So if you are insane, like mentally incompetent, how could you form the requisite intent? You're just an insane person. And so our law has outs for that. We'll see if that happens with this guy. Danny Donaldson. Rob, in your opinion, will it be possible to get a fair judge in any case on the East Coast, i.e. the potential Russia defendants, Schiff, Letitia James, and others? Yeah, I mean, it's a tall order. And I think it's even much more precarious than that, because it's not just about the judges. It's about the jurors. Excuse me. The jurors in D.C. are not indicting people because they're partisan hacks. They really are a jury of their peers. They have one Democrat who's threw a Subway sandwich at somebody, a foot long too, not a 6-incher. And the jury in D.C. didn't indict him. They just said, that's okay, you can do that. If somebody threw a Subway sandwich on January 6th, they'd be in solitary confinement and have assault on an officer with a deadly footlong. They'd raid his house, right, and all the things. And the jurors there would approve, convictions for all of those charges if it was a MAGA person, but it's not, which is why I got to get out of the blue locations. So I think honestly low, like the DC judges, many of them are corrupt. We've covered them. Southern District of New York, where you might go after Tish, corrupt. After Fannie Willis in Fulton County, she's protected. They enable her criminality. They love Fannie. Sheila Poo, the only thing cashless bail does is make life more dangerous for law-abiding citizens. End the madness, enforce our laws, and get these criminals off the streets. It's true. They have created an environment where this is just a revolving door. Somebody gets killed and they say, don't talk about their policies. Well, your system, which is supposed to stop this stuff, is not working. So there needs to be a different approach. Bucky's is Rome says, people don't get it. This is on purpose, okay? Just like people refused to arrest people at the SCOTUS homes. Yeah, they were protesting outside of Kavanaugh's house, which was illegal under federal law. Just like Garland refused to arrest people. Antifa, BLM, rioters, they formed their own little autonomous zones after George Floyd. Certain ethnic groups, these are the Democrats' foot soldiers, and they hype up and then they use it to commit violence against the people Democrats don't like. You better wake the hell up. New York City is about to have millions of these people get empowered when the communist wins this November. Stay out of Democrat jurisdictions. I couldn't agree more. I would get out of a blue county if you can, because you have no shot there, especially if you have any like record as being a conservative or Republican. If that comes out, you're done. So I think that's right. And the hyping up of really, the Democratic Party happened in full swing in 2020, because that's how they consolidate their power. They have to assemble and have a conglomerate, aggregate all the subgroups. The black people, the gays, the trans over here, you just assemble them all and you put together a winning coalition is how they operate. So the George Floyd stuff was meant to agitate that, okay? Get out there and vote. Get out there and protest. But they don't want that to happen if it's a white woman. They don't want white people, getting agitated out there. Just don't be a bigot, okay? And just shut your mouth. No, not anymore. How about this? One old guy's opinion. What's up? Good to see you, one old guy. Says Democrats and rhinos, they're oligarchs, pontifically toasting themselves in their BLM political fundraisers and their conventions on their avant-garde policies that favor lawlessness, murder and assaults, and hate of the law-abiding, God-loving U.S. citizens. It's dumbassery. It's true. It is. And they were very aggressive with it. It was a never-ending spewing of propaganda in our faces every day. They broke their own rules. You could go protest. COBRA's going to kill you unless you're protesting against Trump and on behalf of George Floyd, a drug addict who was in the middle of committing a crime. One old guy, thank you for the very nice dono. We appreciate you being here and supporting us so generously. Bucky's is Rome. Like I said, this is on purpose. No way he passed a background check. And these people are everywhere because of the invasion, facilitated and funded, and their media encouraged. Still no arrest for those responsible for letting him in this country and around your kids. Yeah, watch ICE execute an arrest warrant for a former director of the Minnesota Department of Education, a convicted sex offender and criminal illegal alien. Yeah, and also, think about if we didn't have an extra 20 million illegals in this country, maybe our police departments and our judicial system wouldn't be overwhelmed by 20 million people who shouldn't be here. And maybe they could actually keep this dude in jail if they were sane and had sane policies. But we can't do that because our country is flooded. 200-watt studio. Okay, Martin is talking, but what are they going to do about it? Arrests or just talk? Well, he sounds like they're going to be issuing subpoenas and warrants and hopefully arrests. So he's not confirming that, it sounds like, unequivocally, but he's talking a pretty big game, man. And if they go through this, it's going to shatter their credibility. And I say that with love. We want them to succeed. We want Tulsi to succeed, and Pam and Cash and Ed Martin and everybody. And they're talking a big game. But if we fast forward 3 years and we're just going to focus on this next issue, that's going to be a big letdown. And I think they know that. And I think they're playing authentically to not let that happen. Former LEO, I just wonder how the Democrats will utilize their immunity to just not testify or stand trial. Yeah, so there was the point about they got a pardon, so they can't say, well, I'm afraid that I'm going to invoke my privilege against self-incrimination. Well, what privilege? You're not going to be incriminated. You've got a pardon. So come in and talk. You can't use that. Now, we kind of gamed this out before. And I think the theory might be that they could still say, well, we might be charged, at a state level. And so there is still some liability there. So I'm not going to talk and invoke on that basis. But it will be nice. You subpoena them. Make them argue their pardon. Charge them and make them argue their pardon, which we could make the argument is invalid. And the evidence can be theirs. We said Trump was immune. They said no. They charged him. He had to prove his immunity up at the Supreme Court level, and he did. So if Pencil Neck and Stinky Swalwell have valid pardons, they can do the same. Diane K. Lacey, need to investigate the J6ers corrupt public defenders. That's another interesting comment. Yeah, like were public defenders, pleading people out or something, says Diane K. Lacey. I haven't heard much about that, but I'm sure some J6ers have some stories on that. Thank you, Diane K. Lacey. Yeah, I think everybody on the committee should be investigated. The secretaries, the janitors, the people who answered the phone, all of them, jail. G-Men, the victims could also be objecting because they want to monetize the list that they're creating. And I think it's a very strong possibility that is their reasoning. Yeah, either there is no list, there's nothing in there, or that one podcast gal who said that we're going to make our own list for us that we're going to know about that you can't have. Well, that doesn't support their claim that they're here for justice. Like they want the abuse. Like, do you want the abusers to be punished, or are you just here to try to get media attention and get money? Because there's one way to help ensure that the abusers actually get punished. We're going to need some information on it. But if you'd like to just kind of keep milking this thing and doing press conferences and starting podcasts and writing books and trying to settle with the estate and JP Morgan and all these things to get a bunch of money, and the actual abusers were Epstein and Karoline, and there isn't a third party, then the case is mostly closed and we don't need to spend more time on it. So just, let's move on. But, that's obviously not going to happen. So this old guy says, Dems name Raskin, Swalwell, and Crockett. Wow. Their collective IQs hovering around 60 points. Add them all up. Kind of like a cool winter morning. The entire Democrat constituency up there. And it'll be interesting. Maybe Mike Johnson will reject those and just appoint, just like Nancy did, follow the Nancy precedent. Just say, actually, we're not going to have them on. They're clowns. We're going to have some real people. And just do what Nancy Pelosi did. But the Republicans will never do that. Zena Xavier says victims can't release the names as the perpetrators can have their victims eliminated. Well, my question is, why didn't they do that now? So if they would only eliminate them when their names came out, then wouldn't that kind of implicate their names? Like identifying them would give them protection against that person killing them. So if somebody comes out and says, Bill Gates did this to me, like he abused me multiple times on the island. I'm a girl. I got abused by another person. We haven't heard a single name from a victim. They said they went on airplanes, like Bill Clinton went on an airplane, went on a trip. Okay, did Bill Clinton abuse you? No, nothing. They have like an alleged letter from Trump. It's just ridiculous. So if the perpetrators would take them out if their names came out, why aren't they not taking them out right now? If you're like a billionaire, your name's not out in the public. You know that this woman knows that you did it, and she's like on the verge of speaking about you, and you're a billionaire who's untouchable. Why aren't they doing it now? It says powerless against the purse. Virginia G named her victims, and she's dead, which might be your point, right? She did name her victims. So you think they killed her after she named them? Interesting thesis. Might be right. Archlord Dunewriter says, don't get an HP printer, okay? I will not pay per page. From Archlord Dunewriter. Good advice. 2 months as a membo. I think he wants a Brother printer, actually. Yeah, what's up? Boopsy says, I thought intent was only needed to prove if the evidence wasn't sufficient. Is intent always necessary to produce? Sometimes. Not always, but most of the time. So I would say most crimes have a mens rea and an actus reus. But there are other crimes that don't have a mens rea. So one example is, statutory rape is one example. It doesn't matter what your intent is. Okay, if you're a 25-year-old dude sleeping with a 17-year-old or whatever, you're not in the same high school, you're outside of the rules, 16-year-old, you can say, I thought she was 18. I thought she was 21. She told me she was 21. She gave me a driver's license. I had no idea. I had no intent at all. If I would have known, I would have never done it. Doesn't matter. It's called strict liability. You do the thing, you get charged. Also kind of like speeding tickets, right? It's like, officer, I had no idea. Like, did you have to knowingly violate the speed in order to get a speeding ticket? No. You were intentionally driving your car and your car went over the speed limit. That's enough intent. That's enough mens rea. So it kind of depends on the context of the crime. But murder has a very actually complicated structure for mens rea. You've got, because there's different types of murder. Like there's, premeditated, malice aforethought. So that's one type of intent. And there's also murders that are crimes of passion. Murders that you're not intending to murder someone, but you walk in and that thing's happening in the bed. You go, what the hell? You just hack everybody to bits. That's a different type of murder. It's right, not malice aforethought per se. It's kind of a crime of passion. And then you have other types of murder too, which are felony murders. So like if you're the bank getaway driver and somebody goes in and kills the bank teller, you didn't have intent for that person to kill the bank teller because you were just there to rob the bank. You just wanted money, but your intent was to do the crime, which was to commit the felony, not to result in the murder, but you can still get charged with felony murder for that death, even though you're just driving the getaway car. So intent is a very dynamic thing, and we argue a lot about it. Great question. Thank you, Boopsy, for letting me explain. Sketch therapy. Poverty doesn't create crime, but crime creates poverty. Businesses leave those who can't travel for work and can't move will vote for economic welfare. It's for votes. Yeah, interesting. So, in other words, it's like this slow dismantling of society to create more slaves, more people who have no, it's hard to fight against your government. It's hard to be mad about what's happening in Washington, D.C. if people are being murdered on your streets. We get that, right? Former LEO, maybe if a mental evaluation was ordered on his first arrest, second arrest all the way to his final arrest for felony murder. This animal should have been admitted to a lockup mental health facility. So he might be insane now, but not insane on all of his prior arrests. Yeah, he's just going to be insane now. Our system of justice is irrevocably broken and possibly beyond repair, says former LEO, former law enforcement officer in the House. Says, I wonder if the blatant racism by some black people towards white people will continue to be ignored. I think that a lot of people are ignoring it less. Okay, we're seeing these patterns and people are noticing and getting pretty tired of not being able to talk about this stuff when it's shoved in our faces so aggressively when it's the opposite. And we made this point, I think, on a members only stream. Like, I think there is, I don't know what size, but there's I think in all ethnicities, there's a group of white people who probably absolutely just hate black people. I'm sure it exists. But I'm sure as well that there is a group of black people who just absolutely hate white people. Just period, end of story. Like nothing about it. I mean, many of us, myself included, were sort of born as racists. I mean, my whole life, since I'm coming out of my mom, said, we have to argue for affirmative action. I remember arguing in high school. I think in like 7th grade. They're like, you guys are going to argue why affirmative action is good, why white people are bad and black people are good. Since I'm like 7th grade. You remember that? You guys, many of you do. If you were born in the 80s, there's your whole life. How you're bad, they're good. Constantly. And if you took the opposite side, like on affirmative action, you're like a racist white person. And I did that repeatedly in high school. Like the only kid on the other side of the aisle, all of them talking. It's like ridiculous. So it's not, it's been a double standard, a two-tiered system for a long time in many ways. One side gets a lot of attention. When the opposite thing happens, the other side is ignored because it's not useful for their narrative. And that needs to be remedied. Those people should be called out for the frauds that they are. Dan says, Brother laser printer with scanner are the best. Colors even better. Woo! Toner cartridges are only swapped out when empty. Drum changed after a certain number of pages, like 12,000 to 24. Depending on home versus business. That's awesome. Yeah, because he burns through, man, I ordered him a lot of, the regular ink. And he just burns through them. He's like, I need some more ink. I'm like, I ordered you some yesterday. He's like, well, I had to print out 100 Arnold Schwarzenegger pictures. I'm like, all right, I guess it's true. You had to do it. So, my friends, thank you so much for sending those in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the spicy show and the comments and the new race civil war we're about to enter, maybe. We got B. Torn says, here's a less edited video of her immediate reaction. So if you're over on X and you want to watch the full video, she doesn't grab her wounds. No blood is seen. Passengers may have thought that he punched her, and then everyone was concentrated on him bleeding as he watched around. Yeah, so you can watch the full video. I'd encourage you to do that so you can realize what we're living in. B. Torn says, why don't the prosecutors just file the information with the judge and skip the DC grand jury process? Well, the grand jury, so, typically for murder cases, for very, very serious crimes, like a criminal complaint is good, but you can challenge a criminal complaint with a preliminary hearing. Because you can have a hearing on the complaint's determination of probable cause. So call that officer in, ask him about it, and you have a whole separate hearing. So in order to avoid that, what prosecutors often do is they'll just indict via grand jury, and then you can challenge the grand jury finding, but then the grand jury establishes the probable cause, and you don't need to do that in a hearing with the cop. So the probable cause is enough to get the arrest effectuated, but then the defense can challenge that, demand a hearing, and so what often happens is they kind of dismiss the complaint and then come up with a federal, an indictment to replace the complaint, so they don't have to, have a preliminary hearing on the complaint. Hopefully that makes sense. Gen X says, looking at 3 and 7, people in authority against the we the people, the real government in theory, kind of fired up today. It's going to be a hard road to peace. I know. I don't want a race war, man. I don't want that going on in our country. Dang it. All right, OTR Smokehouse. What's up, Pamela Fiddler? Pamela Fiddler says, time to lock and load, baby. You should, Second Amendment right's a very important right, and you should be protecting yourself because golly. Oh, here's an interesting one. Yeah, thank you for sharing this one. So this got flagged for us from Feline Fun. Thank you for flagging this. Looks like an interesting letter to the Chief Judge of North Carolina. This came out today. And who wrote this? Let's see. Eric Doherty's clipping this one for us. North Carolina members of Congress are pushing to remove this judge from office. She released the murderer. She has no business being in a position of power at all. And so look at these people who signed it. Moore, Fox, Rouser, Hudson, bunch of members of Congress all signed it. They said, Dear Chief Judge, we are writing to urge you that to initiate proceedings under North Carolina to remove this judge from office. The statute provides for the removal of a magistrate for willful and persistent failure to perform your duties. Now, her actions in the case of DeCarlos Brown clearly meet both of these grounds for removal. She authorized the release solely based on his written promise to appear. This decision was made despite his extensive criminal history, 14 prior arrests, possession of a firearm by a felon, robbery with a dangerous weapon, physical assault of his sister. 5 years in prison for robbery in 2014. The January charge was a Class 1 misdemeanor. It arose after Brown became combative with police. Yet despite a history of violent and unstable behavior that's in the system that she can see, she released him without bond or imposing any meaningful conditions to safeguard the public at all. The reckless decision had consequences. His misdemeanor case was still pending. He boarded a Charlotte light rail train and fatally stabbed Iryna. Her murder was not only a profound personal tragedy, but also a direct result of a failure of judicial responsibility. By releasing a repeat violent offender on nothing more than his written promise to appear, the judge displayed a willful failure to perform her duties under North Carolina law. This is wholly preventable, and she didn't do it. Yeah, and we further request the court conduct a thorough review of her prior bond determinations. Okay, everybody else, if you are terrible at your job, like if you're a doctor and you hack off the wrong leg, you get sued for that. Medical malpractice and all these things. But a lot of judges just have this judicial immunity, and there are no consequences for their actions, and nobody has the courage to actually remove them from their positions of power, and they should, because they're not above the law. They should have consequences for failures just like everybody else. Well, this is a very handsome pup. Thank you, Gen X, for sharing this little pup out there in the grass, taking a load off. Shout out to that pup. My friends, thanks for saying what's up over on X. Edward Austin says, the saddest part is no one stood up to this monster. New York is full of gutless wonders. Just my humble opinion from Edward Austin. Good to see you, Edward. Friends, thanks for saying what's up over on X. Very nice to have you there. Shout out to our friends watching on Rumble. What's up, Bad A Dude? Trebly Chief. What's up, Kill Will? Donnie Potwin in the house. We got Marley's here. Good to see you, J-Maw. Friends over on Rumble. Big shout outs. Thanks for watching there. We got some friends on Twitch. What's up, Twitch? We got Jetson in the house. Idiot HQ. The tech support dude. Nice to see you. Yeah. It says there is no rehabilitating someone like that. So what can you do? Lock them up. I'd assume the death penalty is the government's end goal on this one, says the tech support dude. I saw some hints of capital case there, but haven't seen any official filing that they're going to be seeking that. I don't even know if North Carolina has that, but time will tell. And so what's up, Idiot HQ, Shadow Wings over on Twitch. Thanks for watching us over there. Very nice to see you. And Dan says, ink runs out after about 700 pages with only 5% coverage. All printers are compared at the 5% fullness standard. So regular ink is about 700 pages. Yeah, so Joey does that in about 6 minutes. Arnold, Avengers, just printing out like Jerome Powell. It's wild. All right, my friends, thank you so much for sending that love and support in. Very grateful for you. Couldn't do this without your support, so thank you for being here and joining us. We've got a lot of business to cover the rest of the week, no doubt about it, before we wrap it up here and go over to our members-only after party where we will debrief for a few minutes and see what you have to say. We want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths who help out around here. Big shout-outs to Donut, Mine, Me. Shout-outs to John, K. Bean in the house, Carrie B. clipping for us, Neuro D, Janik, and Dog Digger over on the Rumbles. Big appreciations to Gigum, Just Rhonda, and Elliot, our Doc Master in the house. My friends, it has been a beautiful stream. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. YouTube friends, if you're a membo, stick around. I'm going to drop a new link in the chat. Click that link. Then it will be after party time. So, my friends, until we're back tomorrow, I want to thank you for being here. And of course, hopefully you do come back tomorrow because we are going to need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through